You're in your kitchen, 7 in the evening, the pan hissing, and you reach up without looking because your hand already knows where the cabinet is. Cumin, smoked paprika, that jar of cinnamon you bought for one recipe 2 months ago. Shake, stir, taste. More salt. Chili flakes? Sure. The whole thing takes 2 minutes, and then you sit down to eat something that would have been worth more than a human life for most of the time humans have existed. Now take it away. No cabinet, no salt shaker, no black pepper, which grows on a vine 4,000 miles from wherever your ancestors happen to be standing. No sugar, no soy sauce, no oil in a bottle, no chili, because chilies are American and most of your ancestors never knew America existed. Just you, a landscape, and whatever you could catch, dig, or crack open before it rotted or ran off. So the question is simple. For roughly 2 million years, with no spice trade, no seasoning, no salt on a shelf, no way to store flavor at all, what did people actually eat, and did any of it taste like anything? Start with the part that surprises everyone. For most of human history, the world tasted bitter. Not bland, bitter. The difference matters. We picture the ancient diet as unsalted chicken breast, nutritious and forgettable, but it was far more hostile than that. Plants don't want to be eaten. They can't run, so they fight with chemistry, and they've had 400 million years to get good at it. Tannins, alkaloids, cyanide compounds, oxalates. The wild ancestors of everything in your fridge were loaded with defenses built to make an animal's mouth hurt. Here's what nobody tells you. Your ancestors weren't chasing flavor, they were fighting it. In 2022, archaeobotanist Saren Kabukshu published something remarkable in the journal Antiquity. Her team looked at burned scraps of food, actual charred meals, from Shanidar Cave in Iraqi Kurdistan and Raqefet Cave in Greece. Some were around 70,000 years old, cooked by Neanderthals. Inside them, bitter vetch, wild peas, wild mustard, none of these are gentle foods. Bitter vetch is mildly toxic in quantity, but the seeds had been soaked, pounded, and crushed coarse rather than ground smooth, and that's the interesting part. Those steps pull the bitterness out. Stopping partway leaves some of it in. Think about that. 70,000 years ago, in a cave in northern Iraq, somebody stood over a fire deciding how bitter they wanted dinner. That isn't survival, that's cooking. The same story turns up everywhere once you know to look. Acorns fed people across 3 continents, but raw acorns carry enough tannin to dry your mouth to leather and wreck your gut. So humans invented leaching, grinding the nuts, running water through the meal for hours or days, sometimes burying it in a stream bed, sometimes stirring in ash or clay to bind the tannins. Cassava, which feeds hundreds of millions today, releases cyanide. The sequence that makes it safe, grate, soak, press, ferment, cook, has no shortcuts and no obvious logic behind it. Nobody worked that out in an afternoon. The first seasoning wasn't salt, it was patience. If bitterness was the enemy, fire was the weapon, and fire is where taste really begins. At Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, a team led by Francesco Berna found burned bone and plant ash 30 meters inside the cave, sealed in sediment about 1 million years old. Too deep for lightning or a brush fire, which means somebody carried fire in on purpose. At Gesher Benot Ya'aqov in Israel, dated to roughly 780,000 years ago, Naama Goren Inbar found hearths ringed with cracked shells from 7 species of nut and stone anvils still scarred from the work. In 2022, researchers at the same site examined carp teeth and found the crystal changes you only get from low, slow heating. Somebody was gently cooking fish 750,000 years ago. Here's the part nobody talks about. Fire doesn't just make food safe. Fire makes flavor. Heat food past about 140 degrees Celsius, and its amino acids and sugars start colliding, rearranging into hundreds of new aromatic compounds. That's the Maillard reaction, the chemistry behind toast smelling like toast and a seared steak smelling like a seared steak. Roast a wild tuber, and you don't just soften it, you caramelize its starch into a sweetness the raw plant never had. At Border Cave in South Africa, Lynn Wadley's team found whole charred rhizomes of a plant called hypoxis, cooked and shared around a hearth about 170,000 years ago. Woody and fibrous raw, sweet and soft in the coals. So when you picture your ancestors eating unseasoned food, you've got it backwards. They had one seasoning, and it was the most powerful flavor technology ever discovered. We still use it, we just call it a stove. Fire was the first thing that made food taste good on purpose. Now it gets uncomfortable, because there were 2 things ancient people wanted with a desperation you'll never feel, and neither one is a spice. The first is fat. You've been taught your whole life to trim it off. Your ancestors would have found that idea insane. Lean meat alone will kill you. It's sometimes called rabbit starvation, when your liver can't process protein fast enough without fat or carbohydrate alongside it, and you weaken and die on a full stomach. Arctic explorers went that way. So did people who should have known better, which is why one of the most punishing jobs in human history was boiling bones. Rendering bone grease means smashing long bones into fragments, boiling them for hours, and skimming the fat off the top. Small yield. Enormous effort. In 2025, researchers working at Neumark Nord in Germany published evidence that Neanderthals were running what the team openly called a fat factory around 125,000 years ago, tens of thousands of smashed bone fragments from at least 172 large animals, all concentrated at a lakeshore, all processed for grease. Neanderthals, 125,000 years ago, running a rendering operation. The second craving was salt, and salt rearranged the world. Your body needs sodium for every nerve impulse you've ever had, and you can't make it yourself. Hunters got it free, since blood and raw meat are salty, which is why cultures like the traditional Inuit never needed a salt trade. But once people started living mostly on grain and plants, the sodium disappeared from the diet, and the craving turned into an emergency. So they went and got it. At Poiana Slatinei, near Lunca, in northeastern Romania, people were boiling salty spring water in coarse clay pots to crystallize salt around 6050 BC, arguably the oldest saltworks on Earth. Around the same time in China's Shanxi province, people were harvesting salt from the shores of Xieqi Lake. Trade routes grew out of this. Towns, wars. The word salary comes from the Latin for salt. Fat and salt weren't luxuries. They're the two things your body screams for when it's dying. Which brings us to the strangest chapter of all, the moment humans looked at food going bad and decided to help it along. Fermentation is controlled rot. You invite bacteria and yeast to eat your food before you do, and it works because the right microbes make conditions too acidic or too alcoholic for the wrong ones. It preserves food for months, it breaks down toxins, it unlocks nutrients. And as a side effect, it produced the most complex flavors humans had ever tasted. Sour, tangy, boozy, deep. Here's what doesn't make sense until you think about it. To ferment on purpose, someone first had to eat food that had gone off, notice they didn't die, and choose to do it again. That's not a recipe. That's a leap of faith. At Norge Sunnensund in southern Sweden, Adam Boethius excavated a shallow pit lined with pine bark, packed with the remains of tens of thousands of fish, and sealed with seal fat, dated to roughly 9,200 years ago. A fermentation pit. Hunter-gatherers in Scandinavia making an ancestor of surströmming 9,000 years before refrigeration. At Raqefet Cave on Mount Carmel in Israel, Li Liu's team found mortars carved into the bedrock, holding starch residues with the specific damage left by malting and brewing, about 13,000 years old, Natufian, and quite possibly brewed for funerals. At Jiahu in Henan Province, China, Patrick McGovern's chemical analysis of pottery jars turned up a fermented drink of rice, honey, and fruit from around 7000 BC. We were brewing before we were farming. Sit with that one. And now the twist that reframes the whole question. Your ancestors did have spices, you just don't recognize them, because the ones you know come from a handful of tropical plants most of humanity never laid eyes on. Cinnamon is Sri Lankan bark. Black pepper is an Indian vine. Cloves come from 5 small volcanic islands in Indonesia. Chilies, vanilla, and allspice are entirely American, meaning no European, African, or Asian person tasted them before 1492. Those aren't universal spices. They're a recent, weirdly lucky shopping list. But every landscape on Earth grows something with flavor in it. And people found it. Every time. In 2013, Haley Saul examined burnt residue crusted inside pottery from Neustadt in Germany and Okonga in Denmark, cooking pots roughly 6,000 years old. Inside she found phytoliths, microscopic silica skeletons, from garlic mustard seed. That matters because garlic mustard has almost no calories and no meaningful nutrition. All it contributes to a pot of fish and venison is a sharp, peppery, garlicky bite. It's the oldest hard evidence we have of a person seasoning food purely because they wanted it to taste better. 6,000 years ago, on the Baltic coast, somebody threw a handful of seeds into a stew for no reason except that they liked it. It runs deeper than that. At El Cedrón in northern Spain, Karen Hardy's team analyzed hardened plaque on Neanderthal teeth from about 49,000 years ago and found traces of yarrow and chamomile, both intensely bitter, both nutritionally close to worthless. Some researchers say medicine. Others say flavor. Either way, somebody was putting things in their mouth for reasons beyond calories. At Ohalo Cave in Israel, archaeologists pulled hundreds of coriander fruits from a layer around 8,000 years old, and nobody was eating coriander for energy. And on a wall at the Cuevas de la Araña in Valencia, Spain, painted maybe 8,000 years ago, a human figure hangs from ropes on a cliff face, one hand buried in a wild bee's nest, swarm all around. Somebody climbed a cliff for sugar, somebody else thought that was worth painting. Juniper in the north, wild garlic and ramsons in the forests, sumac and thyme across the Levant, wild ginger, mint, mustard, sorrel, seaweed, smoke, ash, sour berries, fermented milk. There has never been a human population eating flavorless food. There are only populations whose flavors we've forgotten. So what did a real ancient meal look like? We have one, nearly perfectly preserved, and it's worth describing exactly. In 2018, a team led by Frank Meixner analyzed the stomach contents of Ötzi, the man who died in the Alps around 3300 BC and froze into a glacier on the Italian-Austrian border. His last meal, eaten an hour or two before he died, was about half fat, ibex fat, probably cured or dried, plus red deer meat, einkorn wheat, and traces of bracken fern, high fat, wild meat, ancient grain, a gathered plant. That's not a sad meal. It's dense, deliberate, and packed by someone who knew exactly what a body needs in the cold. Now, step back, because there's one last thing, and it should humble you. At Ohalo II, a waterlogged camp on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, dated to around 23,000 years ago, preservation is so good that Ehud Weiss identified more than 140 plant species carried back to the huts. 140! Wild wheat and barley, acorns, almonds, pistachios, grapes, olives, figs, raspberries, dozens of small-seeded grasses no modern person could name. And on a flat stone at the site, Dolores Piperno found starch grains showing grain being ground into flour 13,000 years before farming. Most people today get the bulk of their calories from wheat, rice, maize, potatoes, soy, and sugar. 6 plants, give or take. Your ancestors ate 140 species from one lakeshore. Winter, drought, toxins, and rot came at them with everything, and they answered all of it. Bitterness, they beat with soaking, leaching, ash, and thyme. Toughness and danger, they beat with fire, and got sweetness they'd never tasted as a bonus. Missing fat, they beat by smashing bones and boiling them for hours over a fire they had to feed all day. Missing sodium, they beat by boiling spring water down to crystals in Romania and China before the pyramids existed. Spoilage, they beat by making allies of the bacteria causing it. And boredom, plain human boredom, they beat with a handful of garlic mustard seed tossed into a pot on the Baltic coast, for nothing but the pleasure of it. Here's what that adds up to. Flavor was never decoration. Flavor was information. Bitter meant careful. Sweet meant energy. Sour meant fermented and safe. Salty meant your body could keep running. Rotten meant stop. Every taste bud you have was shaped by 2 million years of ancestors who guessed wrong and died, or guessed right and ate, and handed the difference down to you. Taste isn't a preference, it's an inherited record of survival. And we broke it. That's the quiet tragedy of the modern kitchen. We learned to manufacture the signals without the substance, sweetness without fruit, savoriness without meat, salt without scarcity, until the language your tongue evolved to read stopped telling you the truth about your food. So tomorrow evening you'll stand in that kitchen again. The pan will hiss, your hand will find the cabinet without looking, and out will come cumin from Rajasthan, paprika from Hungary, cinnamon from a tree on an island you'll never see. 4 seconds, you won't think about it at all. But somebody had to taste it first. Somebody bit the bitter root, somebody trusted the rotten fish, somebody climbed a cliff face for honey with bees in her hair. They left no names, they left your tongue. Every meal you've ever enjoyed was paid for by someone who ate something terrible first.